Alright guys, welcome to Arsenal 23. My name's Seth, and yes, I've got over 3,000 rounds to this Colt Python, and today we're going to talk about it. Before we get started, a huge announcement for the channel. So upon publishing this video, we're going to be officially launching the Arsenal 23 store, where you can buy shirts, hats, pretty much anything you want that's going to be Arsenal 23 branded. And to celebrate this, we're going to be giving away this one-of-a-kind 10-inch Arsenal 23 sticker to one of the first 15 people to place an order through the store. Now, I've never been one to want something for nothing. So instead of launching a Patreon or asking for donations, we just want you guys to get something in return for supporting the channel. But if you can't afford to support us through the store, don't worry about it. That's fine by us. You don't have to have 10 inches to have a good time. That's why we're going to be giving away this 4-inch Arsenal 23 sticker to one of the first 10 people to comment on this video. So make sure you watch through the end of the video and let us know your thoughts on the Colt Python and whether or not you would be buying it. Now, with all that being said, thank you for your patience. Let's go ahead and jump into this review. So yes, I've put thousands of rounds to this Colt Python, and today we're going to talk about how it's held up over the past 3 years, as well as compare it to cheaper brands like Smith and Wesson, and see if it's just the Colt name driving the price. And remember, this video isn't sponsored by Colt or any other brand, although that would be nice. But first, let's add a few rounds to this thing's total round count and put some shots down range. So why did I decide to buy one of the new model Colt Pythons? Well, I grew up shooting this gun, an early 90s Smith Wesson 686 in 357 Magnum. As you can tell, the dimensions are mostly the same between these two, and I grew pretty partial to shooting full-size 357 Magnum revolvers. Well, I was first introduced to the Colt Python in 2010, when they released the original Call of Duty Black Ops video game. The Colt Python was the most accurate and the most powerful sidearm in the game, and that made quite the impression. But my real interest in the Colt Python peaked with the release of the television hit The Walking Dead, featuring Cowboy Sheriff Rick Grimes and his trusty Colt Python. And yeah, you can say I'm a fan. The show took the already iconic revolver and turned it legendary. Unfortunately, this made the prices of used Colt Pythons skyrocket, reaching peaks of over $4,000 online. This was until Colt reintroduced the Python in 2020, nearly 15 years after production ended in 2005. With the release of the new Python, prices on the older models cooled just a bit online, but the new model offered some substantial upgrades over the older ones. This included a beefier top strap, simplified rear sights, and a more durable stainless steel alloy over the older models. They also simplified the action on the newer guns, which proved to be pretty fragile in some of the older models, with some coming out of time. Now, for those who don't already know, this is a major issue with revolvers. If the cylinder doesn't properly index and align with the barrel, this can prove to be catastrophic for not only the revolver, but also the shooter and bystanders. So what is a stronger top strap good for, and why is that significant? Well, revolvers, after heavy usage, can begin to literally cut themselves in half as a result of flame cutting. Flame cutting is a destructive phenomenon that occurs whenever hot gases under pressure are escaping through very narrow gaps. The cylinder gap on a revolver is a perfect place for this flame cutting to occur. As you can see with this Smith & Wesson 686, significant flame cutting has occurred, leaving a deep scar above the forcing cone into the top strap. As you can see with the Colt Python, it's got a little bit thicker of a top strap, giving you a more durable revolver that will last for more rounds. So to me, the simplified action on this Colt Python is pretty good, mimicking that of the older Pythons, known for their legendary actions. Even though prices on the Colt Pythons aren't $4,000 anymore, they're still pretty up there, with this one MSRPing at just under $1,700. And while you may be able to find it a bit cheaper at your local gun shop, that's still a significant price to pay for a 6-shot 357 Magnum revolver, especially whenever you can buy another quality Smith & Wesson revolver for hundreds less, such as this Smith & Wesson 586, which retails for just under $1,000. That's a $700 difference. So is the Colt Python really $700 better than this 586? Let's see if we can figure that out. So let's start with comparing the actions. Well, the Colt right out of the box has a buttery smooth double action trigger pull, but the single action was a bit weird. Whenever you would cock it all the way back and go to pull the trigger, the hammer would come back ever so slightly and then drop. Now, this was a result of Colt having to comply with California regulations about drop safety. Now, how they tested this thing to me is quite absurd. What they would have to do is they would have to cock the revolver, raise it from a height of about 6 feet off the ground, and drop it however it wanted to drop onto a slab of concrete with the hammer cocked. Now, if you are a sane person, you would say, well, that is ridiculous. Why would they do that? Great question. So to make it where this gun would not fire after being cocked in single action and dropped from a height of about 6 feet onto a concrete slab, Colt added a small tab on the rear of the hammer sear, making it to where it was a really dull, mushy single action trigger pull. Now, this is very easy to correct with just some simple tools. Let us know in the comments whether or not you would like an instructional video on how to do that. But other than that, this Python is 100% unmodified, again, aside from just that little modification to the hammer sear. Now, keeping that single modification in mind, let's get Jeremy up here so we can get a good, honest review from a fairly green revolver shooter and compare the $1,700 Colt Python to the $1,000 Smith & Wesson. So, as I just said, this is my cameraman Jeremy, and I think he's only shot these guns like a few times, isn't that right?
Yeah, maybe twice on that one, definitely only once on this one, yeah.
So let's have Jeremy shoot these two, and then come back and discuss his opinions. So, Jeremy, which one you want to shoot first?
Let's start here and we'll work our way up.
All right. So, before you shoot that one, what are your initial thoughts on the Smith?
Well, I mean, feels pretty good in the hand. It's maybe a little thick for me anyway. I mean, somebody with larger hands would probably still have no issue with this at all. Looks good. A little basic. Sights are, they're revolver sights. Nothing special. But let's go ahead and shoot a few rounds. Okay, single action, pretty good. Let's go ahead and try a double real quick. Something right there in the middle. I felt like a
little hang up or something?
Yeah, like it was engaging a gear.
So a bit notchy, maybe.
Yeah. Let's try that again. Let's see. Do it real slow. Yeah, about midway. Let's try single again. Do one more of those. Yeah, single's pretty nice, I gotta say.
Your accuracy seems pretty good.
Yeah.
You want to try the Colt?
Yeah, let's go ahead and move over to the Colt. Yeah, I feel like I got a better grip on this one. I don't know if you could see on the other one, but my thumb was probably about here, and now I'm way up here with it, so.
So the grips are a little bit better for smaller hands?
Yeah, like I said, somebody with bigger hands may have an issue with that and, prefer a larger grip.
Well, I mean, you can always change out the grips too.
Right, yeah.
So.
Also, immediately, I'm a sucker for shiny things, so this stands out to me a lot more.
Yeah, a lot of people like that vent rib along the top.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, still just revolver sights. I mean, it's
pretty standard.
Yeah, it's pretty standard hardware on here. Anyway, let's see how this one shoots. Go ahead and cock that back. Let's have a look here. Yeah, that's nice. Now let's try double. Yeah, see, this one doesn't have that hang up.
A little bit smoother.
Yeah. Like I pull it back and it's just, yeah, right on back with no fuss. Just right all the way through. Yeah, nothing. Wow. Yeah, that is impressive, I will say.
What do you think about the single action?
Single action? Oh, I mean, I just touch it here. I mean, let's. Yeah, that's nice. You said this was modified?
Yeah, so that one's going to be slightly modified from the factory. There's a little bit of a hang up. And again, let us know down in the comments if you'd like to see how I modified this revolver to have that nicer trigger pull.
Well, this is pretty nice, but let's head back to the table and talk about both of them side by side.
So Jeremy, now that you've shot both of these revolvers, let's hear some of your thoughts about comparing and contrasting the two. Like, which revolver did you feel more confident shooting?
Well, confidence. I mean, for me, it's all just revolver. I'm not familiar with pistols in general, and revolvers even less so. So for me, I mean, it's really all a wash as far as confidence. I will say this feels a lot better. Just smooth would be the word.
That's what a lot of people say about the Python. It's exceptional, buttery, smooth double action. So if you had $2,000 to spend, which revolver would you end up going with? You just had disposable income.
I mean, completely disposable income?
Completely disposable income.
I mean, it's got to be that one.
Got to be the Python?
It's just too nice. It's too nice overall.
All right, well, now that we've gotten Jeremy's opinion on everything, let's take a closer look at these two and look at their fit and finish to see if that is where the Colt Python really shines. So, after a good cleaning, both of these are looking pretty good here on the table. Let's start by taking a closer look at the Colt and seeing how it's held up over 3,000 rounds. First things first, let's talk about this scuff right here on the grip. No, this isn't from dropping it or scuffing it on something while it's in the holster. This is actually from speed loader use. Keep in mind, the grips don't really get in the way. It just, like I said, it made that little scuff. It's something that you can work around, but it may end up scuffing your grips if you use speed loaders. Moving past that, the only other obvious damage on this revolver is down here on the bottom of the grip. Now this was entirely my fault. It could have been avoided, but I was running this revolver through a police handgun qualification course, and at 25 yards you're required to go prone. So I was prone with this revolver in a good two-handed grip. And whenever I fired it, the revolver came back ever so slightly, and the back end of it caught the concrete that I was shooting on. Now, aside from that scuff and the damage to the back of the grip, that's pretty much all that's damaged on this revolver, at least from me shooting it. Other than that, it's held up beautifully. Now, aside from the grip, the only other way that you can tell I've put 3,000 rounds to this revolver is by looking at the cylinder and the top strap. As you can see, there are some etched carbon rings on the face of the cylinder, which is to be expected, as well as some slight flame cutting above the top strap, which we discussed earlier. Now this revolver is still perfectly in time. There's no cylinder wobble or anything like that. The lockup is still perfect. The sights have stayed true, and as much as I've fired it and carried it in that holster, no signs of holster wear whatsoever. Overall, for the highest round count Python on YouTube, it's held up extraordinarily well. So let's look at a few of the finer details, and then we'll discuss some of my issues with this revolver. So I mean, right off the bat, this revolver is just nice to look at. There's clean lines, there's no unsightly gaps, and it's all topped off with that iconic ventilated rib barrel. Moving on around, you'll find the hammer and trigger are both nicely serrated, making for a good tangible grip on both parts. Continuing on to the other side, you can see that there's no key lock, which can be a big deal to revolver enthusiasts and potential buyers. More on that key lock later. It's got the standard Colt cylinder release. Just pull back and the cylinder just rolls right out. It's hard to explain through the camera just how different this feels than the Smith Wesson. It's just buttery smooth is the best way that I can explain it. But it's not all roses with the Colt. As I've said, I've had some pretty big issues with this gun. As many of you have probably already seen, for some reason Colt decided to put a massive QR code on the side of the frame. Why, Colt? Why would you do this to an otherwise beautiful design? The worst part? All it does is confirm the serial number, which is stamped less than half an inch away from the QR code. Anyway, my next issue lies under the grips, so let's remove those now. As you can see, the frame is just butchered with these awful machining marks. Now I know that this is purely cosmetic, but come on Colt, how did this make it past quality control? And I know what you must be thinking, well Seth, it's just one revolver. No, actually whenever I used to work at the gun shop, we had quite a few of these come through, and on every single one that I inspected, they had those same awful machining marks under the grip panels. And yes, they are under the grips, so nobody will probably ever see them but you, the owner. But whenever you're asking $1,700 for a pistol, that is just unacceptable to have. So with all that being said, let's see what $1,000 gets you with the Smith & Wesson. So the first thing you'll notice with that Smith is it does have that key lock on the side of it. The blued revolvers tend to hide it a bit better, but this is what it would look like on a stainless Smith. This is on my 629. Moving right along, the Smith features a kind of case-hardened look on the trigger and the hammer, which looks really nice, and the hammer has some proper checkering on it. The Smith also features serrations that the Colt doesn't have, like along the barrel and the back strap of the revolver. Now remember, this is $700 cheaper than that Colt Python. So let's take a look under the grips on the Smith and see if it has any of those bad machining marks. And no it doesn't. But while we're under the grips, this is a proper location to put a QR code where it can be covered up. So is the Colt better than the Smith? Yes, I'd say so. But is it $700 better?
Well, no, probably not. To me, this Python is not $700 better than the Smith & Wesson, and I don't think it ever could. At the end of the day, they're both .357 Magnum revolvers. But do I regret buying it for more than I would have paid for this Smith & Wesson? No, absolutely not. As I've already explained, I grew up shooting this Smith & Wesson 686, and I always knew it was a pretty nice revolver with the Smith & Wesson nameplate, but it just wasn't the legend. It wasn't the symbol of law and order turned judgment that was featured in The Walking Dead. Truth of the matter is, when you Google the finest American revolver ever made, Smith & Wesson's name isn't the one that pops up. You know what it is? It's going to be the Colt Python. Alright everybody, that concludes our video for today. If you liked the video, like I said, give us a like down below. And if you want to enter in to win the 4-inch sticker, make sure you leave us a comment down below as to whether or not you would want to buy this Colt Python over this 586. And be sure to go check out the store. And if you want to, support us a little bit. Remember, the first 15 people to place an order will be entered in to win that 10-inch Arsenal 23 sticker. But until next time. And yeah, you can say I'm a fan.